You're listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast, the official podcast of jaysjournal.com and fansided.com. We are the official ballroom chat for everything Toronto Blue Jays baseball, from game highlights to rumors and all the stuff in between. Here's your host, Craig Borden, with co-hosts Jason Lyons and Liz McGuire. Now let's talk some Toronto Blue Jays baseball.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Jay Bird Watching. All sorts of Major League Baseball news that we get to talk about tonight, including the fact that we are going to talk some Blue Jays history on what the hell we've done in off seasons of yesterday, because we're having so much fun the last couple of years and what is already shaping up to be a moderate level of a train wreck with all the fun going on. I figured it was a good night to talk, but either way, I am your host, Craig Borden, here on episode 436 of the Jay Bird Watching Podcast. I am with Jason and Liz, as usual. How we doing?
Good. I'm going to say this. So I am on my parents' farm in the Ottawa Valley. I saw and got into a fight with 3 actual live Blue Jays today. So I did some Jaybird watching in the flesh. That's me.
Or was it Jaybird fighting?
I watched and I watched them fight, and then I yelled at them.
There you go. So, Jason, have you been yelling at any birds to say this?
You know, I can't honestly say I've been yelling any birds, but I will say this: I have been, you know, as this offseason, you know, has sort of molded its way around here. We are starting to see some real, you know, no real major surprises. Like if anybody's surprised that the Dodgers or any of the other teams that really make moves. I think it's more on the other side of things, but you know, things go on. It's been nice weather here in Vancouver, so I've got that as a plus. Yeah, you know, love the off-season baseball stuff. Super fun.
So let's dive into that news, because before we get into talking what's going on with the Blue Jays or not going on with the Blue Jays and all that kind of good stuff. So the biggest news hot off the presses is that Blake Snell signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers yesterday.
But wouldn't you too? Wouldn't you too?
Yes. Why wouldn't you? And I don't have the number in front of me. I'm trying to search for it, but it was a big deal. And he is 100% getting a World Series title out of this almost at that point. You know, I'm honestly shocked this wasn't last year's deal as far as what happened with Major League Baseball. But Jason, give me what your thoughts are of Blake Snell staying on the West Coast.
Well, I mean, I think it's funny because when it happened, I was quite surprised to see it happen. And then, of course, you start to see the amount of shattered like Padres fans and anyone else who thought they were in the hunt. You know, I don't think Snell has been, you know, he was fairly obvious. He did want to stay on the West Coast. I know that he has a really cool baseball academy that he runs out of Seattle. So, I mean, he wasn't going far. Blake has always been somebody that he doesn't let anything else dictate except for his own personal life be where he wants to be. So, I mean, if the Dodgers were able and willing to, you know, back the old Brinks truck up, and they seem to be more than willing to do that, you know, it's I think it's hard to say it's good for the game, because
especially when you hear how much money was deferred once again.
Yeah, again.
Once again. But I mean,
$52 million of that is deferred.
Yeah, I think.
Signing bonus. Signing bonus.
So what does that leave? That leaves their starting rotation as Yamamoto, Ohtani, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, and Gosselin. Like, I mean, yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, Gosselin's a number 3 in a lot of freaking Major League starting rotations now if he's a 5th guy.
Yeah. Crazy.
Maybe they'll all get the yips. Who knows?
Yeah. Or they could be like last year. They couldn't get a guy to stay on the mound even throughout the playoffs. Yeah. So who knows? That's why you play the game. That's why you show up. But Liz, this is hell of a force that they put together in Los Angeles to build up some bats with and keep going, I guess, is the quote unquote reload for a back-to-back that the Dodgers are clearly going for.
Yeah, I think the thing is this: is it like, when is MLB going to crack down on deferring salaries? I can't see them allowing it for too much longer. I'm a little bit upset that if you can buy a team, Rogers, where are you at? Like,
Yeah.
where are you at? Where are you at? It's like it's too easy to hate on the Dodgers for being clever. I refuse to do that. But what I will say is the Blue Jays. You are one of the richest owners in baseball, and I get that there is an advantage to LA and being warm and palm trees and all that shit. But if you look, like, taxes look generally the same, like as in California as Ontario. So I don't know, like, pull up, Jays, and start investing in a winning culture so that we can get the big dogs at some point and just buy money cheat into a winning team.
Or at least hold on to our own people.
Yeah, that's the other thing that sort of frightens me right now is to see, the teams making moves, teams, sort of getting to where they want to be. And yet we have probably the biggest prospect certainly in some kind of years, sitting, waiting for a deal. Right. And we are hearing nothing. I know, Liz, you sort of alluded to, some of the generation of Vladdy in different jerseys, and
stop social mediaing that to other teams. It upsets me, but it's our fault.
It's the whole country that's getting angry. Stop it.
No, keep going. I don't know.
So, but to that point, that's the shit or get off the pot ballpark that you would think Atkins and Shapiro are on right now. They've been on the hot seat for how long, and everybody was calling for their heads that not seeing something move.
No, I don't think they know they're on the hot seat. I don't think they know they're on the hot seat. I think they.
But to that point, you would think this is like, okay, Alex Anthopoulos and Beeston, 2015. This is our last chance. Put the fucking cards into the table and push them in. So you would think that that's the level that we need to get to here, and that's thankfully it sounds like offers are in on Juan Soto as of the recording on this on the 11/27 Wednesday. So who knows what's going to come of that, but talking the news that has been flying around, I want to give the panel here the chance to chit chat on what has been going on around the internet with Juan Soto and the 5 teams that are quote unquote in on him. Let's just point that out that our maiden competition is New York Yankees, New York Mets, the Boston Red Sox, us, and I forget the 5th team that supposedly put an offer in, but we all probably know it's the Dodgers at this point.
I legit hope he goes to Colorado. Like, it's just like, I'm going to Colorado.
Peace. Have fun with Chris Bryant. Wonder why they don't have a farm system.
I'm going to be a Washington National.
Hey!
That was still my call, by the way. I still would not be terribly shocked by that, but who knows?
Something like that for sure. Yeah.
So, but from all accounts, it sounds like that the Blue Jays are one of the 5 teams that put in an offer.
Yeah.
Do you guys think there's any reality to that he might be actually thinking of?
There has to be. Here's the thing. There has to be reality. even in just trying. Even in trying creates a reality. What are the chances? Pretty fucking slim, I think. Doesn't matter. I'm actually stoked that at least our front office, who I hate on daily, is out there hustling. Because imagine if they just weren't. Imagine if they just weren't out there hustling, right? So they are out there hustling, and of course we all are afraid of an Ohtani, redo 2.0. Where we don't 2.0, where we don't have another guy in the bag. And I hope they've learned from that. But I am stoked that they're out there hustling. That being said, and I'll go back to this: be true to your school. All right, sign your fucking extend Vladdy. Make sure you reward the guys who are there and producing, and then add to that. But it's like, I do hate on the discourse that we have no chance of Soto. We do have a chance of Soto because we're
absolutely.
Fucking out there hustling.
I think one of the things as well that we have to realize the reality of is Juan Soto is not the only player of his hitting caliber that's out there still. Like Santander is, if not better, of a home run hitter than Soto is, and I mean, Santander's 30. Soto's 27, 26.
He'll be 27 by opening day, I believe. He's 26 currently.
He's no spring chicken either. What's I get it, but I don't in some cases. Juan Soto is not Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is a generational player that will and has changed the game. Juan Soto is a solid lefty bat that has
Can't field.
performed that has performed okay. A couple of different times in a couple of different places in the playoffs. He's been pretty good, but not great. So I mean, I don't know. I would like to get Soto because I think that the Jays have so wanted to get another big name, but comes with it all that we talk about, and we're going to talk about some of this later on, is the mistakes that have been made and
100%.
overpays and all the rest of that stuff. And you're like, you look around the league, baseball is notorious for overpaying at an unbelievable clip. And,
Correct.
At some point you have to say, maybe he's not worth, maybe he isn't worth it. Maybe we can get by with Santander and something else. Or, maybe we start to count on the guys that we have tried to count on for a while and just haven't, given the support to, or, like I saw Ernie Clement finally got an Instagram page. That's awesome for him. And it's nice to know that, it's nice to know that he's, finally going to be someone that we can see. And I would assume, that he considers himself to be a bit of a star now, which is great. I mean, it's what you need. Your ego needs it. They're all good things.
So the big thing I think in the Soto deal you get is you are getting that instant recognition for the Blue Jays actually pushing their shit into the chips into the table, right?
Do you guys think
quote unquote sitting on the sideline?
Yeah. Do you guys think that there's a concern, with the other teams that because Vladdy hasn't signed, that may push a guy like Soto away?
Possibly, yes. But the other fun part about that whole thing is for Vladdy, why would he want to stay here if they're going to keep doing what they've done the last 3 years? So maybe he's waiting for them to do the Soto thing or something like that to finally sign something too. So,
unless of course the only other thought I had was that, there has been in the past, I mean, it's very, very sort of 80s, not early 90s, was doing multiple at one time. So you sign Soto, and within that same presser, you're locking up Vladdy and
party on the streets.
It's a big part. Yeah, party on the streets. Exactly what you're saying. But it does frighten me a little bit that they haven't, there hasn't even been mention of an offer to Vladdy. Like, not just we're not doing anything, just nothing's happened. So
yeah, it's just radio silence, right?
It does seem odd. I mean, but again, maybe they've learned their lesson and they're trying to keep things, close to their chest, or closer. So I don't know. I mean, it's right. Sometimes it's hard to say.
Right now I'm hating on MLB Network because somebody's just retweeted something out on the world that an MLB Network being MLB Network. Proposed trade blockbuster with the Cubs includes Gossman and Vladdy going to the Cubbies for a pile of shit, is in my opinion.
They love that shit.
Michael Bush, Cody Bellinger, Cade Horton, who is a right-handed pitcher, and their quote-unquote Chicago's third prospect, who is not even named on this.
That's just looking for engagement.
But that's the kind of stupid that we're getting in the midst of Vladdy not being locked up full time. Saying, that's the reason I brought that up. But to that point, we already know what we're going to get if we end up, lining Vladdy up full time and getting him a big contract. We've seen it. Blue Jays fans, even in his lulls, have forgotten how real good he has been. So you look at the back of his baseball card, the numbers are there for him being clearly the face of this franchise and the team MVP. And it's without contest. Yeah. So there's those pieces to it. Get him locked up. Get Soto here. Get somebody in that caliber that puts the two-headed monster in this lineup that we really need, and go from there. I really think that's what this has got to be about with the front office to this point. And they got to find a way to make the aggregate if they can't get Soto to sign up in the North. So,
yeah, I also, this is an aside. I also am fussed because everybody's like, bring back Teo. Man, Teo's in a better place. He doesn't want to come back. He likes it there. Let's leave him be. It's over.
Yes.
Move on.
Exactly. Jason?
Well, I mean, I read an article today on Jay's Journal that was talking about 5 guys we shouldn't go back after. I was surprised they didn't mention Teo in that. It was a very good article, actually. I don't remember who wrote it, but it was quite good. But it was interesting to see some of those names. Pilar being one where you would get him as a really low cost 1 year. But that being said, I think that the Jays have to be very smart about what they do. This is a key season, and like you said, Liz, Rogers is not short for dough. If Soto is not, a candidate, they need to establish that shit now.
Yep.
And move on.
You
can't sit pat and be like, he's on a plane. Like, we don't want that stuff. We don't want that. It didn't wash well with the fans of either team, I don't think. And, it created, it was certainly interesting for us, but, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, like if the offer from the Mets and one other team is $720, then just back out. It's way too much money, and I know he's looking for 15 years or something like that. Like let's be realistic here. When, like you said, Linz, when are we going to stop letting teams defer? And when are we going to make these guys sign realistic contracts? Give them their money for 10 years.
10 years.
And at 36, let's see what you're doing, because most guys are not going to be playing at any kind of medium level at 36. So
we've already seen what our right fielder currently can do at 34.
Right.
Yeah. It's like why I remember I was so against the Marcus Semien deal. Even I thought he was just too old. Because you're taking on the good years, and it's just insurance years in the back for that player, right? That's it.
It's being paid for a plethora of amazing career.
Bobby Bonilla.
Right.
Yeah.
Bobby Bonilla. So I don't know if you two follow this X account or not, but there's a gentleman named Hubel on X that has been posting a Vladdy home run every day until Vladdy signs. It has been day 23 since he started the account. At HXBBLE. But I'm watching one that he just took out of the trop, so am I blowing the roof off of it? Oh, shit. Sorry, too soon. Sorry, Rays fans. But anyways, I worry that account's never actually at night. It's never going to actually stop, because you're going to just have to run out of home runs because the Blue Jays are too dumb at this point or something. I lose sleep over it at the end of every night. Yeah. So, but
they've given up on Jordan Romano now, so he's out.
He's gone. He's gone, and he must be toast. But I don't know if you guys agree.
I think that was a money move.
Well, I think it's similar to what Liz is saying. I think he's toast. I think it's like Cabrera just signed a minor league deal. He was one of our main pitching, his mainstay in our bullpen last year. He's not, he's still young. He still has a good arm, but I think it speaks to another couple of things. I find it interesting that we constantly sort of rely on the one big linchpin to fall. And, we already talked about Snell, but we talked about Snell. You and I, Craig, have talked about Snell
last 3 years
many times, and how good he is. He's always in the Cy Young conversation. He's sneaky, possibly the best pitcher that's out there, and everyone just keeps so. Kudos to the Dodgers for making a couple. Kudos to the Angels for making some moves. We
got somebody actually credited Jeremy on X on our YouTube feed is actually crediting the Angels with getting the floodgates going with Kyle Hendricks and from the Cubs, and for Blue Jays fans that are not aware, Yusei Kikuchi is also a brand new Anaheim Angel for a 4 years, $63 million.
What are they doing?
36.
Is this just to keep Mike Trout locked into their Stockholm syndrome? What?
They've never. That's the thing, Liz. So when they had the two best baseball players in the world, and they didn't help them at all, and then they lose right before when things are really starting to look like Shohei is going to leave. They sign Anthony Rodon for an insane amount of money. And he's just like, oh, I'm just not gonna play baseball anymore. I'm just gonna suck so bad. Yeah, I'm gonna suck so bad. You guys don't even want to put me at third base. So I mean, I feel like
he's gonna belong on a DH for that team anymore. They might as well just waive him like the freaking New York Giants did with their quarterback, for fuck's sake.
Oh yeah, I know. Oh wow, that's a lot of money as well. Anyways,
same idea as Rendon right now, in my opinion. There's nothing different there.
I feel like the Angels are finally at a point where their $1 billion owner is like, fine, I'll get a couple of talented guys in here. We'll make the playoffs for the first time in 12 years. We'll lose in the wild card, and everyone can at least be happy with that, because that's all. He doesn't seem to have any interest in winning at all, because he had every opportunity to. They could have loaded up. 2 years ago when Ohtani was just like on fuego, they could have loaded up and they could have made themselves a team like the Dodgers and made themselves untouchable. And they don't have any interest in it, and it's
nada
weird.
No,
but
they should be fined. That owner should be fined. Like, the way that he's treating that team is just like the league should do something about that. It is messed up, man. It's like,
I put this on par then? I agree with you, Liz, that some owners need to be held accountable, but if they're going to hold the Angels accountable for the bullshit that they did, the A's are on the first one. And then the number 2 to me is actually the Pittsburgh Pirates' douchebag of a owner, and I'm saying it exactly that way because he's done players wrong, and Roddy Tellez, who this fan base loves, cut 2 at bats before he was going to get paid an extra $8 million or something like that, or I can't remember, or an extra $1 million or something. And then he has the audacity and the testicular fortitude to turn around and offer 30 years of 2 great seats behind home plate for a fucking baseball card. There's my rant.
I don't want to go on a rant here. It's the last couple of years.
People enjoying this right now.
The last couple of years of MLB baseball have been a little weird. Like, there's been some weird stuff, and you look at some of these teams, and to bring up Pittsburgh right now, like Pittsburgh has 4 or 5 really good players on it. You look at a guy like Ellie De La Cruz, who they're not putting anybody around this kid, and this is not just Major League Baseball that is doing this. Like, you look at the Chicago Blackhawks and what they're doing to Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard was as hyped as McDavid or any of these other guys that have come, maybe more. And then they have surrounded him with a bag of crap. And he's going to, McDavid had to deal with it in Edmonton for a long time. And, there's a lot of people who say that, they made it to the Cup last year, but they've got no heart. And you can't win with no heart. And these teams who seem to luck out or suck out and get these awesome, generational players, they just can't make anything happen with them. Ohtani goes to the Dodgers and they make it look easy. You know what I mean? Like, they have an all-star team, but you still have to win. It boggles my mind that some of these guys can't look at these things and just be like, oh, right. We need to surround them with good players and likable players and, things like that to get people's bums in the seats and make a winning, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Because at the end of the day, baseball is a game that is 100% bigger than one person being on a team. It doesn't matter if you have the best pitcher in baseball with no team around him. Doesn't matter if you have the best hitter in baseball with no team around them. You have to build a team the proper way. And I will say what we currently have, this team for the Toronto Blue Jays, I think, even looking back at it, this team was built up the right way. The problem
100%.
is you've cleaned out the cupboard.
Yeah.
You don't have the backfill to keep the team consistently good. So the only way to do that when you've been winning enough to not get good draft picks, and then you can't draft to begin with. I'll throw that out there too.
For real.
You got to spend the money in free agency because you don't have the trade capital to turn around and grab somebody in a even trade deadline deal. We saw that the last few years. The Blue Jays did a decent job this trade deadline, getting the low Perfidos in the world, which, by the way, his baseball card has a hell of an offer attached to it right now. You could have Thanksgiving dinner with him and his family.
Dinner.
Yeah.
Nah.
So, but unless all y'all got nothing else to say on that avenue, I'd like to take that and segue into the rest of this talk for this evening, which was to talk what the Blue Jays have done in history in the offseason, the good, the bad, the ugly stuff of what we have known as Blue Jays fans from any era. Like I said, there's a reason I used Roger Clemens on the front cover of this on our YouTube page and everything for this episode. And I think he is the 100% kind of idea that you're currently dancing around with the Juan Soto idea. You went after the biggest fish on the free agent market, and you're hoping to bring him up to the north of the border to play in the Rogers Center all day, every day. At the time, that was 100% what Roger Clemens was, and the Toronto Blue Jays got him, and he won the pitching triple crown twice in the Blue Jay uniform.
Yep.
So just saying, it was a little good.
Yeah.
And we traded him for David Wells. But that's besides the point. But that's what you're hoping to get from Juan Soto, and that was a massive deal and probably a record deal for that time frame. That was one that worked out. Then you have the flip sides of these coins. The AJ Burnett contracts, the DJ Ryan year, those kind of things. Talk to me, gang. I've pulled a few names out here. Do we want to start with some of those names, or do you just want to start reaching into the recesses of your memory and seeing who you can think of?
Well, that you brought up, I mean, you brought up a couple of the ones that I was going to mention right off the hop, and it's, I think there's been a few real major league, just like head scratching, but it's what happens, right? It's you get into these situations. You start to panic a little bit, and you're like, geez, what do we do now? These guys have done this and these guys have done this. We got to lock this arm up, or we got to lock this up, or we got to do this. And it usually ends up in you making a poor choice. Not always. Sometimes you can luck out and be like, oh, remember when we took a chance on a Roger Clemens or on this. But yeah, there's been a lot, man. Yeah.
So I'll throw some of what I found floating around the internet is the quote unquote best Blue Jays free agent contracts for an offseason signing. I mentioned number one is 100% Roger Clemens, 4 years at the time, $40 million with an opt-out after the second year. The Blue Jays knew he was going to opt out. So they 100% traded him to the Yankees of all places for David Wells and a few other things. And then in true fashion, he did opt out and got a giant payday from the Yankees. So proper moves. That was played well. Next one, 3 years, $13 million for what everybody thought was an old and decrepit Paul Molitor.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest ones. Yeah.
World Series MVP, the M to our Whamco, everything and all the above. The next one was the 1 year, $2.3 million signing of Dave frickin' Winfield. So,
yeah, I know.
The World Series. Perfect. Next, also part of that same team, 2 years, $10.85 million, Jack Morris, 91, 92. That obviously worked out pretty well too.
That's one of the ones that when you're reading baseball stories, that's one of the ones where there's so many people that just scratch their head and they're like, how did the Blue Jays make that happen?
Yeah. So we had him for 92, 93 with that deal. And obviously 93, he wasn't the same Jack Morrison as just injuries, too many innings for 2 crazy long years, including a 10-inning pitched game for the Twinkies in 1991. So then the other honorable mentions that don't show the dollar amount was we got a crazy great season out of Dave Stewart in 1993. And we got a monster near 40-40 home run stolen base year from Jose Canseco for 1 year.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. Yeah, I remember at that time I kind of tuned out for a second, and then I tuned in and I'm like, oh, Canseco's around. I was like, yes. It was fun because I hated him. I hated him as an A.
And then you're like, yay!
I hated it.
Chicks dig the lawn ball. So, But that's 100%. So obviously those are the great, oh my God, those won us World Series. Those led to great seasons. Having Clemens and Canseco on that team in 98 was a very fun team to watch that unfortunately just got steamrolled by our division. But at the end of the day, we've done a lot of good. Those are some of the really good ones, right? But for every one of those, you have what we're currently living in with George Springer. So I don't know if I'd lump that in a bad one yet.
I wouldn't yet. I wouldn't yet, because George Springer reminds us that we can sign big talent. Like, I remember the feeling. I remember taking like the afternoon off work to watch that press conference, and I was like, this makes me feel good that we can score a big American name. And even if you had watched for the American broadcast, they always picked George Springer as our star. It was never Bo or Vladdy. It was always George Springer, which I thought was funny because like we didn't think that. So I won't hate on Springer as of yet because of the momentum and how he made me feel special.
Yes, and I will flat out agree with that too. Just current Blue Jay fans trying to get y'all in here because we clearly have touched a nerve as the number keeps climbing on our fun here. As we got 71 of you on the show. Come on, tell us some of these things that you remember from your Blue Jays history on the chat. We're here to chit chat and talk about it. So the ones according to this same article I'm looking at right now for the worst are, the funny thing is there's literally 3 names and a lot of money here that I don't even remember. So the top one, it says the worst contract we ever signed in an off-season deal was 3 years, $9.4 million in 1995. So this would have been for the 1996 season, to Eric Hansen. He was a pitcher.
How'd that work out?
He pitched to a 13-17 record with a 5.41 ERA and 35 starts. Yes.
That is not good. For those of you who are scoring at home, that is not good.
And if you're scoring from home in the offseason, I really pity your life choices. So
hey.
I'm just playing. Jason's going. Craig strikes out. Beamed in the shin.
The 6-4-3 double play.
Yep.
The next worst one this is the one I actually mentioned, and I still think this is 100% the worst one you could have done in Blue Jays history. 5 years, $47 million for BJ Ryan in the offseason going into the 06 season. Got hurt after having an electric start, and then just never really got back to it, and then only made it really 2 seasons of that 5-year deal. Jason, go for it.
I had just brought that one up. I knew there was a couple of real stinkers, and that BJ Ryan one is one that really stands out as just being like just so bad. Like decisions get made. I understand that, and sometimes you're hoping something's going to happen. And BJ Ryan wasn't a terrible pitcher. I mean, we've had a few of these guys.
At the time, he was the best closer in baseball.
Yeah, and I mean, it's you take a chance and you hope that the arm's still there or the legs are still there or whatever the case may be. But I mean, that was a bad one.
Yep.
Yeah,
that was a really bad one. AJ Burnett's a bad one. What do you guys think about Ryu?
Didn't make this list.
Do you guys think Ryu was?
I think those two that you just laid out there, Ryu and AJ Burnett, are oddly similar as far as how much money at the time you paid for those eras that they played in.
Yeah.
Plus the level of return you really got. You did get some up, but you got mostly hurt and rough. It was hard to watch, right? Because we did get really some good stuff with Ryu, in the COVID year when we went to the playoffs the first time again.
No, I don't think it was enough to matter.
Yeah, I mean,
it limped.
Same idea. It's not like it's living in Blue Jay infamy, but it's not being rewarded at the same time. But that was a fun rotation when it did click with Holiday and Burnett, though. That was very interesting to watch. And we did get to see that for a 3/4 of a season, and then he opted out and went to the Yankees.
I feel like though back then, when you look at some of these contracts that the Jays have had, where they've been successful, where the opt-outs have been played right, and the discussions have been, seemingly like everyone knew what was going to happen. I feel like people talked about, I feel like players talked about that back then. Like where you'd be like, what are you guys thinking about my contract? Oh, well, here's what we're thinking. We're thinking that, we're probably looking at somewhere in this neighborhood. And then, you can kind of go and try and make hay somewhere else, or we can try and sign something past that. And they seem to be a little bit more. There was never like really huge, shocking surprise. Like, oh, he did what? Like, no. I mean, you're like, yeah, we knew he was going to the Yankees because that's what they do. They sign everybody.
At that time.
Yeah.
That late, post 1995 strike, baseball shortened season in 95, and then running into the new millennium, the Yankees spent money on everything. There was no shortage of money. They used all power and weight behind that brand to bring in any person they humanly possibly can. And this included at the time, 43-year-old Randy Johnson, who still pitched like the 20-something-year-old Randy Johnson, things like that. So you can see why these things happen.
Yeah.
So, and then the Blue Jays trying to be competitive amongst all that too. That was
well, that's the hardest part too, right? I mean, nobody wants to pay top dollar to go see a team rebuilding. I mean, when you guys were talking about, sort of ripping on the A's and some of the other, like low hanging teams, nobody wants to go pay, watch a bunch of bums. Like, I think that I feel like, baseball is one of those sports where that is magnified a bit sometimes, especially when you're, if you are not loading your lineup with MLB players or at least MLB close players. So, I mean, and I feel like over the years that has sort of become a thing where, the fans won't put up with it. They stopped showing up in Oakland until they were like, oh, we're going to sell the team, and they're like, no, you're not, and they're like, yeah, we are. And then they did.
And then they did.
So you get to this, you sort of get to this level where you've had all these sort of great things or not great things, and you've got to take chances on certain parts of it. And like I said, I mean, there's only so many times that you can hit a home run and really just be like we really nailed that. Like,
And to that point, the name of the ones I did say that were the quote unquote best contracts in Blue Jays history, just to put that out there. Like I said, we got the best of Roger Clemens, period.
Oh, yeah.
For 2 straight seasons. 4 of those other signings I had mentioned led to the 1992 and 1993 World Series. Boom. Just saying. I only brought up so many names. But I do have 2 other names on here that I thought were interesting to be on this worst list that I wanted to bring up. And one is Canadian Corey Koski, who we've spent 3 years, $17.5 million for him to play third base, handful of games. He only made it into 97 games in 3 years and batted .249.
That's not good.
Yeah, and at the time for the Twins, when we signed him, he was one of the up-and-coming top third basemen in the game.
Wow.
So there's that one. And then we tried to capitalize in the David Eckstein Blue Jays Angry Bird era with spending $18.12 million on 2 years for Frank Thomas, trying to get the best out of the Big Hurt to anchor that lineup with Rios and Vernon Wells and everybody. So
great nickname, by the way. One of my favorites of all time.
Crime Dog.
Big Hurt.
It's such a good.
I argue Crime Dog is better.
Oh yeah,
I definitely do love the Crime Dog. And that's the 80s fun of freaking McGruff for the police commercials.
Big Hurt, that's good. That is good.
Yeah. But to that point, do you know how he got the nickname the Big Hurt?
No, tell me.
Jason?
I don't actually.
I have this story for you because here's the fun thing of in my childhood, before I, here in Rochester, New York, even before we had the Yankees channel here in New York, we always had WGN, which is the Chicago sports and Chicago news channel. So I always got the Cubbies and I got the White Sox always here in Rochester, New York, which I know sounds really awkward, but that's how TV deals used to be in the day.
Yeah.
So Hawk Harrelson is the famous announcer for the Chicago White Sox. And when Frank Thomas was coming up in the early 90s, he hits a home run that was like just driving a line drive into the stands. And this is a highlight on him record. And he goes, wow, he put a big hurt on that ball.
Oh,
And it
that's
just stuck.
Yeah.
So, and then, you could put it on the board. Yes.
Yeah.
This is always his call. So, but he was so caught off guard with how hard Frank Thomas hit that. He actually missed his famous home run call and said that. So it stuck. Good deal. So I figured that we have a couple more minutes. Those were the free agent signings. Good, bad, ugly, horrible. I can't think of any crazy, horrible trades off the top of my head, but I can think of the good ones.
What about the Syndergaard Dickey trade? What's everyone's ponder on that?
It worked for me. It got me to the
always
playoffs.
That's been a bone of much contention, that one.
Yeah.
So the one thing I'll give you in this, and I'm going to open this up for chit chat on that, to your point, Liz. So you made that trade. At the time, you traded a could-be franchise catcher in Travis d'Arnaud, and then you had, obviously, the thunder arm that was Thor in Noah Syndergaard. You got a Cy Young return because at that time, R.A. Dickey had just won the National League Cy Young with the Mets. You got him to anchor this pitching rotation on an 80-mile-an-hour knuckleball. That's can't write this stuff up, Blue Jays fans. But you get him back. They turned around and, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the end of that deal is when they turned around and just said, you know what, fuck it, we're paying for Russell Martin.
Yep.
So does it really hurt you losing that franchise guy when you paid for 5 years of Russell Martin?
No.
And you got to the playoffs twice.
No. And we like Russ.
That's
Russ
my
Martin.
framing.
We like Russ.
Yeah.
Like when I see a Martin jersey around, I'm always like, yeah, I see you. Like, I see you.
Yeah, exactly. And to that's my thought about it. I could see why Blue Jays fans would have just loved to hold on to Syndergaard and think you could have gotten to the same place. I really do think so. That, but I don't know if it would have happened in the Blue Jays' luck for that. Yeah. I really don't, because you had to refine Syndergaard still to get him to that point where he was that good of a pitcher. So, and we couldn't produce pitching out of our minor league system. Hence the reason, you traded for Marco Estrada, you traded for R.A. Dickey, you brought back Jay Happ, and he turns into really good Jay Happ, not Jay Hapless that I used to nickname him in his first Blue Jay tenure. So you built a rotation out of pieces for 2015-16, and it worked. Trading even Mark Burley. That was also another trade who I love.
We got Price. Yeah.
So you were going to have to build that rotation out anyways, is my other piece to that.
Okay.
So thoughts? Like I said, I'm opening that up. That was just
I was always at peace with the Syndergaard trade, but it really rubbed me. It rubbed me watching him be handsome and beautiful and throw well for other teams. But I thought that was a decision. We were going for a World Series. We were going for it. That was a decision we made. That's just like, we were gunning for a Cy Young winner. I was at peace with it, but I know a lot of Jays fans are still upset about it. But based on what you knew at the time, I feel like it was a good decision.
Yeah, and knuckleballers are always so in baseball lore, knuckleballers either gonna just crush it for you or they're what they were, and I think back then Syndergaard was a little bit unproven and still had some work to do, and so I don't know. No one ever hits the lottery at 8 million, 8 times in a row. You're always going to have duds in there.
Yeah. Wait. Okay. What from your point of view, was Dickey a win? Was a Dickey deal like a good? I have no opinion on it. I'm like, man, maybe, probably not.
I think it worked out for both teams at the end of the day. I don't know if he won that trade.
Shit out of me. Oh, he would.
It wasn't.
He would
awful.
He would give up a home run. He'd always just kind of do this hangdog thing that drove me batshit crazy.
So just to be. I have one R.A. Dickey snippet that I just got to have here. Is I'm slightly disappointed in Blue Jays fans about one stupid thing with R.A. Dickey. Okay. You've seen Blue Jays fans do all the stuff with the mustaches with Davis Schneider and all these things. How were there not a bunch of Blue Jays fans that showed up in those horrible flannel Dickies on R.A. Dickey night?
It had promise.
Yeah.
It popped into my head. Maybe I'm just, maybe that's just a stupid American. No. Great, you have a man bib. It's got flannel. It's okay. You can hide out in the woods with it. So another trade that pops in and gets talk a lot in Blue Jays history is the infamous Josh Johnson, Jose Reyes trade for the Toronto Blue Jays and the Miami Marlins. That was quote unquote the mega deal 2.0. It reshaped the franchise.
I hated that whole team. I hated that whole team. They were cursed.
Yes. Yeah. It was, and that's honestly, I think the best way is saying it. You ended up bringing in a giant amount of money with Jose Reyes, 6 years on his contract at that time, still remaining $106 million. You bring in Mark Burley, who was also just signed with the Miami Marlins. That was interesting after a year. And you bring in, funny enough, John Buck was another one that came in that trade, which that worked out all right with us in Blue Jay trade history, that part. But the pile that went back the other direction was Yaniel Escobar, who was on everybody's shit list at that time.
He was part of the team. He wrote a gay slur in his eye black. Yeah, I remember watching that team, and I remember we had Brett Laurie at the time, and all these like just stupid losers. Yeah. And that started the curse of the team. We had that guy. Right. Then later, Jose Reyes, who I thought was so cute, didn't perform, and he also threw his wife through a door. And I just this cursed shit kept happening. I was like,
yeah. That was watching that team get torn down was not exactly my utmost upsetting of days, because it needed to be burned and left for dead and moved to the next. So, cleansing of fire and starting over, right? Yeah. So that was one of the ones that stuck out to me as a horrible trade in Toronto Blue Jays history. So let's turn the frown upside down. Let's talk about some of the good ones. And I think the actual Blue Jay trade of all time is the one that two of gentlemen that we talked and loved, Fred McGriff, Tony Fernandez, cornerstones of the Blue Jays family.
Yeah.
Go to San Diego and come back. You get young, talented prospect Roberto Alomar and RBI machine Joe Carter. That turns the team over on a new leaf in 91 and really turns into what we all obviously fell in love with, in which we're going to have VHS tape night at some point.
Back to back.
Go for it. Back to back. And still, two Leslie's fun. That is still one of the coolest logos.
It is great. It's a gorgeous logo. They put it on a giveaway hoodie a couple years ago.
Yes, they did. I'm very jealous. And anybody's got one, I'll buy it.
And so that was just like, I will also say, I don't know, does the who did we trade for Bautista?
Oh, that was in season, and I actually had that one in front of me. Not so catching prospect Robinson Diaz for Jose Bautista, straight up. And at the time, Robinson Diaz was a player to be named later.
Ooh, what a good that's what you hope for. You hope that you're uncovering these superstars in the rough. You can just sort of tweak up their batting stance, and then they'll be amazing.
If you don't have the McGriff and Fernandez for Carter and Alomar trade, that is 100% the biggest win in Blue Jays trade history.
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
I did forget one other one that was a horrible stain on fun for the Blue Jays as far as this, as I'm going down this deal, and this is the Roy Halladay trade to the Phillies. The one that hurt me the most because it gave us nothing. Except if you really want to say it was 6 degrees from us getting R.A. Dickey because we traded Travis Denard.
No,
it's not the same.
Pass.
I just read one that isn't a trade that made my skin crawl because I never realized that it happened. Now, the Jays aren't fully to blame for this, but I don't know if you guys know or not, but Mike Trout didn't go number 1.
I did know
Mike
that.
Trout he went number 27 overall.
Was it JP? Who went ahead?
Nope. The guy that we took, the Jays took, was Chad Jenkins.
Yes.
Okay.
I interviewed Chad Jenkins.
Chad Jenkins anywhere. Now, let's be real.
A very obscure Craig Borden Jays Journal interview is where you will see Chad Jenkins.
Really? That's awesome.
Really?
I knew that. I always do that to you. But, that being said, 26 other picks were made before Mike Trout was picked. But to know that you were that close to that, you know what I mean? Like he was probably that good in high school. He was probably, like those are the ones that boggle my mind, or the ones that either the ones that go super high and burn out, or, the guys that get picked 276th overall and they're on the team in a year and a half. You're like, how does
How?
that?
How? Yeah, it's
So
So the
wrong.
Angels actually had. So I have a horrible brain buster for you then, because I actually pulled up that draft, because that is one of the weirder Major League Baseball drafts in history as far as the level of amazing and the level of where things happen in the draft, especially the first round. If you want to look at this, I highly recommend everybody taking a peek at it. But do you know who was picked by the Angels pick before him in another compensation pick?
Oh no, I don't.
It's a former Blue Jay. I can't make this shit up. I really can't. It's Randall freaking Grichuk.
I was going to say, is it
I knew
Grichuk?
that. I knew that. I knew it. I knew that. It's handsome Randall Grichuk. I knew that. Oh, man.
So
What a
just
ride.
to put this out there, there was only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's Trout was 25th pick. There was only 11 guys in this draft that made it to the majors before that pick.
Yo, when
out of
did
those
Trout
25
get
guys.
Like, when were people like, this man is Mike
Who,
Trout? Like,
Trout?
when did that happen? Yeah.
It was pretty much right
was
away
first
as far
pick?
as I remember. He was 18 years old. He made the team. Who was the first pick? What year was it?
So this was year 2009.
No idea.
You're gonna hate me as soon as I say it.
It's Juan Soto.
No, that would have been too funny. And time machine level, getting your DeLorean. But no, this gentleman actually just officially retired last season, which is even more funny in the midst of this whole thing. Because let's just say he had a flamethrower of an arm. He's a former World Series MVP with a team that just got rid of their superstar to the Philadelphia Phillies the year prior. Nope. Jason, I figured you might get this because I'm talking about Bryce Harper as far as his former team.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Was it Steven Strasburg?
Oh.
Was the number 1 overall pick in that draft.
He was a weird baseball player.
Yeah.
Why?
I got the pleasure of seeing him when he got AAA.
He was so good.
And
he never seemed to really, like Steven Strasburg is a name you know, but it's not like Scherzer or
No.
Like it's not. No, it's not.
The flame, the flame burned very, very bright for a very, very quick time period.
Yeah,
and he has been nothing but hurt, and that's what led to his early retirement.
Yeah,
and this is the thing I worry about pitchers and period and all that, because Steven Strasburg is, if he continued what he did for his first 5 years, he's a Hall of Famer.
100%.
And he in wild level stuff.
Yeah.
I hope and pray for Major League Baseball fans' sake that people like Paul Skeens are not that kind of a burn bright and fizzle out.
Yeah,
and
me too.
I think Paul Skeens is 100% the coolest guy on the planet. Outside of, he is the most mellower celebrator I've ever seen for winning an award.
It was awesome.
Very crazy.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome.
And we were getting to this one. Go for it.
Don't you think that, though, like with a guy like I think what we're seeing now is, I think we're finally, like, I was listening to some of the stats, like especially that Fernando Valenzuela one where he threw 137 pitches twice in the World Series, in the same World Series, over 130 pitches. Yeah. And you're like, okay. I mean, Fernando seems
what
fine.
they did.
He wasn't a train wreck. I just don't know if we're made softer or not, but I think that the time they've taken with Skeens and the fact that they, like, people get mad when they limit innings and people get mad when they, they do this and they do that. The idea is to try and maybe get these guys, some sort of longevity. But the other hand of that longevity is, if you're a Steven Strasburg, or if you're a Paul Skeens, or if you're any of these guys, and they say, okay, you've had your 2 years, here comes the absolute Boeing jet full of money, we're just going to drop it on you, and you go, well, what do I have to do now? Like, I don't have to squat now. You've given it to me. You've given me the keys to the castle. I don't have to. If I don't want to blow my arm out and have multiple surgeries and walk around like a, like with my back all messed up and my knees all messed up and my feet all messed up, if I don't want to do that, I'll just mail it in for a couple of years and I'll get cut and I'll be okay with it. And I feel like that's part of what these huge contracts offer up is the availability to say, I'm out. Like I just don't
Anthony
want to
Rendon.
do it anymore. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think
I will give the Strasburg thing credit though, because he got that giant payday after winning the World Series MVP, and he did have a couple more good seasons, but then he was constantly hurt. He actually was helping the ball club in that time frame where he was hurt. He was working in their player development center, working with young pitchers, working with pitchers that were at the major league level, trying to keep them fresh, not maybe make the same mistakes maybe he did. I don't know. But at the end of the day, he was a main contributor for what I would say is the current not Washington Nationals foundation. So did they give him a bunch of money that he didn't play on the field? Yes. But did it maybe translate to what could be a winning few seasons for them coming up? Maybe. It could have been part of the formula or some of the sauce, right? Yeah. So we have another comment from Jeremy, who is on fire this evening. We didn't talk about this one yet. I still think this one's a little early. It's too fresh.
Yeah, you know what, Jeremy? Jeremy, we like you. Jeremy, we like you, but it's too soon, buddy. It's too soon.
Yeah. So the wound is too fresh to pour salt on.
But. Although Moreno looked like hot garbage this year, and
it looked better this year.
All three of them looked bad this year. Like all three of them were like, oh my god, like you were a prospect, you won a Gold Glove, like what?
But like Loris Gurriel Jr. couldn't hit the ball either, so there was something going on there in Arizona. Period. So, and we got a Gold Glove winner, I guess. So I guess there's something to it. Best all-team Gold Glove, yay! Yeah. Last place. Yeah. And you just gave me the full Monty Python and the peasants rejoice. Yay! 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 I have one other good out-of-season trade that Blue Jays fans should be in the recent memory, and this is flipping Brett Lawrie, Franklin Barreto, who is still funny enough in the Oakland A's minor league system, Kendall Graveman, and Sean Nolan for the 2015 MVP that was Josh Donaldson.
That was a great little trade. I like that very much because it felt like something new. It felt like with Brett Lawrie was such a train wreck. You still see girls walking around with Lawrie jerseys and you're like, what?
Yeah, I still have a soft place in my heart for Brett Lawrie and his.
I have no soft place in my heart.
30 cans of Red Bull in a game.
He was a photomaniac, man.
You know what's funny is next week we will have Simon Pond. I don't want to tease you, but we will have Simon Pond on the show, and he played with Brett quite a bit. He knows Brett quite well. He's got some good Brett Lawrie stories. He told me. That'll be fun. He was an interesting cat, Brett Lawrie.
He's cute. Yeah. He's cute as all hell.
You know what?
Have you seen him gone full lumberjack on Twitter though yet?
We got to get this straight. There's not too many baseball players you don't find handsome.
There is. Okay. Well, let's talk about it quickly. Let's talk.
That's about the uniform, I think, Jason.
Let's get into this quickly. No, there is actually. I just maintain that there's some are more babes than other. Like, listen. Brett is actually like a babe. He doesn't even really have a body for baseball. He's just a babe. Now other ones like my friend Genesis Cabrera, he just like has this beautiful smile. So some of them do, some of them don't. It's more about the drip. It's about the drip and the attitude.
Gotcha. And Brett had a ton of that.
Anyway, but I will be more apt to name
before there was drip.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway. But yeah, Brett Lawrie, he like years after he kept trying to get back into baseball, he was doing a promo outside the Dome for Heinz ketchup chips. Heinz released a ketchup chip, I think, and he was on a giant tomato slide. It was a weird trip, man.
Yeah. So I have one more horrible trade before we give the Blue Jays fans our sign off here and go to next week, which apparently we're going to have with Simon Pond.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the rest.
Yeah. Well, give me 2 seconds here to let what is in one of my personal opinions. This might be the worst trade that we've made as far as giving up a future that could have been at this time frame. So I'm going to flash you back to the trade deadline at in 2000. The Blue Jays have a young prospect that hadn't really risen in any ranks or anything, but he turned into the franchise shortstop second baseman for the Texas Rangers. And I'm speaking of Michael Young, who was traded for Esteban Loaiza. to get us a
good name though.
pitcher.
That's a good name. Like as
Good name.
names go, Esteban Loaiza. That's a good one.
Loaiza.
Loaiza. He would have been good as a Yankee
fun to
when they
say.
do the over one, when they say his name, they're like Esteban Loaiza.
Yeah.
Loaiza. Be a funny one. I like that one.
There you go. But to that point, I forgot. I thought that was an off-season trade. I apologize. I'm reading off of my own script here, apparently. But those are the kind of
come on,
things
Craig.
that,
We don't have a script. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, there it is.
Nerd, you nerd.
Nope. Nerd and the nerd is where let me go to retreat with my calculator to the nerd of
Liz.
So, but that's all I got. Is there anything
Liz is big on Wednesdays.
Throw out here?
Wednesday,
I don't mind
Liz
Wednesdays.
is on fuego today.
Yeah. That's about
So nothing good. Okay, so Jason, drop us next week's episode promo on us.
All right,
here.
so here's what's in the mix and what we're hoping to get here. So Simon Pond, former Blue Jay, he played a lot of pro ball around. He is a North Vancouver resident. He is a friend of mine. I saw him a couple of weeks ago, and he said he would love to be on the show. So we are efforting to get him next week. And in contrast to that, we are also looking to add Finn Hoshin to the show. Finn is a 17-year-old prospect from North Van. He went to the Jays future camp that happened a couple of weeks ago and really had an amazing camp and was actually named to Canada's junior team, went down to the DR
awesome.
and played in the pre-tournament to become a member of Team Canada. And I mean, for anybody who's ever put their nation's name on the front of their jersey and worn it, in any kind of sport or anything else, what kind of a big deal is. So I think this would be cool if we can get it. This is a juxtaposition of somebody who's been out of the game for quite a while and somebody who's just coming in. So I'm trying to make the stars align for both of those things. And then, so got some more irons in the fire. This Twitter thing is sometimes a friendly thing. People out there, how many people are out there watching right now?
93 people live.
93
right
people. Get on these superstars. Who do you want to hear on this show? If the people reach out to these guys, to the Jesse Barfields and the Dave Winfields and the
Kelly Grubers,
the Kelly
freaking Gruber.
Like if you guys reach out to them and tell them about this amazing thing that we're doing here, if you build it, they will come, people.
Yeah, we built it and you're all here, and we want to hear you too. So you all come on and join in. We can't. Jeremy can't be the only one that thinks we're full of shit. So come on, join in. So on that note, awesome play, Mr. Lyons. We do greatly appreciate it, and we're going to keep having some fun here as we roll through the off season. We are going to be here every week. So make sure you join in on our live streams and listen wherever you happen to get your podcasting pleasures from. We are here. We are ready to talk on the barroom chat that is the Jay Bird Watching podcast. We all hope you have a great weekend and happy Thanksgiving to the people here stateside like me.
Yes.
Cheers.
Happy Thanksgiving, U.S. people.
Woo.
Cheers. Go Blue Jays.
Turkey Day.
Thank you for listening to the Jay Bird Watching podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, at BirdwatchingGC, and our YouTube channel. If you want to support the show and get extra content, please consider joining to our Patreon at patreon.com/birdwatchinggc. Go Jays, go.
Woo.